welcome. I've been thinking a lot about prejudice this week. It's a really big topic, so I probably won't get too far into it. There's a lot going on in our world today that just shows us how prejudiced we still are. Some of us think we're less prejudiced, but you start to wonder just how prejudiced you actually are. And I've also started to wonder about the persistence of prejudice. And I've been thinking about where does it all come from? And that's when I started to go, maybe prejudice isn't actually so much about ignorance. A lot of people think that prejudice is about ignorance. We don't understand another culture, we don't understand another religion. But I'm actually starting to think that it is a political tactic that has been used for centuries. It's so easy to use propaganda, to use brainwashing techniques, to aim a population at another people group, to create a common enemy. The problem with it is that it then demonises that other people group. And even if they release those messages for a short time, they have a tendency to run away and to create a snowball effect, and then they start to persist even over centuries. If you look back over history and you start thinking through like a lot of the conflicts that have happened, you can start to actually go, how much of that was a propaganda that the political forces at the time decided that they wanted a message that they wanted their people to know? You think about slavery, for instance, and think about the fact that actually you can only enslave another people group if you have been brought up on messaging that says that they are animals or that they're less than humans, and so therefore you can do anything with them. So this superiority, where did it come from? It's propaganda. It's this idea that my people group is better than your people group. That's not necessarily self-generated. That can easily be a tool by our governments to generate what they want. And I mean, what we see is that actually it is beneficial for governments to create a common enemy. It wins them votes. It gets them put in power. It gets them money. They get to sell weapons, and I mean, hey, the corporations love that as well. You think about the rise of Nazi Germany in World War II. They were coming out of a situation where they had been oppressed quite dramatically through the 1930s, and they created a common enemy. Hitler created a common enemy, and that was the Jews at the time. And then even in New Zealand, in the 1890s, there was a military installation built in Auckland because of fear of the Russians. The Russians were coming, and the Russians never did come. But they had created this tremendous fear had been created. This prejudice had been developed, and it was so strong that they built this great military installation to protect New Zealand from the Russians. And then there's so many other examples. I was talking to a friend this week who was telling me about the Anzac War with Turkey, and how the Anzacs were taught that the Turkish people were cannibals. Again, propaganda to try and get to stop people from squashing their human nature, which is, don't fight, don't kill. And instead it makes people go across those barriers that we have and makes them do things that they wouldn't normally do. And in this case, a soldier got captured, and he actually experienced, no, they weren't cannibals, and he was well fed and well treated, and 30 years later went back and was given his personal effects, and they'd looked after those things for him. So what I'm trying to say here is that I think that prejudice is a weapon. I think that we have misinformation and disinformation pushed at us. I think that we often don't realise it's happening to us. I think that we hold prejudice. Each one of us has different forms of prejudice that we probably don't even know that we have. And what we're seeing right at the moment is a really dramatic rise in prejudice as well, as we have this extreme event of coronavirus. And so all the rhetoric around, oh my goodness, the Asians brought the coronavirus, or the Chinese, and that is causing people to attack anybody who looks Chinese, or they might think they might look Chinese. And so there's like this demonization of all East Asians now that is creating tremendous harm, and now we've got all the borders that are starting to go up. We've got so many different things happening. We've got nationalism brewing again. The globalization is getting squashed, and prejudice is on the rise. And a whole lot of those messages they were put out there by politicians because they wanted to win votes, because they wanted to galvanise their people against. And it runs away with on them. So they can either be deliberate, a choice, stupidity. It can be age-old messages that have gone for hundreds of years. So I think prejudice is very complex, but I think that it is used quite dramatically as a weapon in our world. And I think that the only way that we can fight back is to make sure that we pay attention and we try and notice when they're trying to use us, when they're trying to point us at somebody else. We don't want to have Christians against Muslims. We don't want to have Muslims against Christians. We don't want to get brainwashed by messaging through movies and that tells us that this other people group is the enemy. So I think that is the only way that we can deal with it. That we have to be really self-aware. We have to notice what's going on. That's my thought for today.